We do need a little bit of time to make this a national priority. We've had plenty of time, we need to be doing it. We all acknowledge healthcare has sucked the oxygen out of the room. Can't go anywhere without talking about healthcare. I went on vacation, everybody wanted to talk about healthcare. But today we're here to talk about something else, and I encourage all of you to be part of continuing that conversation, to asking whether it's your members or members of the media, to ask your readers to tell Congress, to tell the Senate, to tell the administration that there has to be time for more than one issue. We have to be able to tackle more than one problem in this country at one time. And for those of us here who are frustrated because we have spent the better part of the last 4 years since Safety Lou was passed working on planning for this time, I'm saying to them it's time to catch up. And it's time to multitask, and it's time to do more than one issue. So let's start talking about transportation and make sure that whatever extension is passed, which I'm sure we'll talk about ad nauseum here, is the shortest possible realistic extension for getting a bill done. If we do not do that, we are going to sacrifice jobs, both in the near and the short term. There is no question that the jobs in the construction and related industries are going to continue to suffer if we do not provide a sustainable increased source of funding for transportation. There is also no question that the jobs that are induced by the appearance of infrastructure in this economy, whether you're building distribution systems, you're building better intermodal connectors, you're getting rid of bottlenecks so people can conduct commerce, those in the long term are going to disappear. We are in the business of long-term economic growth. If we don't deal with these problems, the productivity of our economy is going to suffer. It's going to be threatened by bottlenecks. It's going to be threatened by congestion. It's going to be threatened by the inefficient connectivity between modes. And I did too also kind of laugh when I walked in the door and saw that we were talking about the highway bill today. I'm glad we separated Jennifer and Darren. I'm glad there are also 2 other people between me and them. But, this is, we do have to talk about this as the transportation bill, because even though Safety Lou reauthorization will primarily deal with the highway aspects of freight transportation, it is also about the connections between those modes and making those efficient and making sure that the freight that comes in through the ports of LA and Long Beach or the port of New York, New Jersey can get off those ships and onto the docks and onto whatever mode it's going to take to get it where it needs to go. It's about time. The more time we waste on this transportation bill, the more time it's going to take to get goods from one part of this country to another, and that's something we can't afford. I didn't need to get an MBA to find out time was money, but sometimes we got to remind Congress that time is money. So I guess my role here today from the U.S. Chamber's perspective is to remind everyone that this is a bill that's about jobs in the economy, and it would be a tremendously, trying to come up with a better word than gargantuan, but I probably can't. It would be a tremendous missed opportunity, a bipartisan opportunity to do something for our economy, to do something very tangible for Americans that they can understand and that they believe in and support if we don't make getting Safety Lou reauthorization done a priority. I am now going to turn it over to, I said I would say this, the esteemed Downey, who's the chairman of Coalition for America's Gateways and Trade Corridors, and someone I've had the privilege of knowing, to wrap up for us.
Just quickly introduce the coalition. We've been around for a number of years, but our visibility continues to increase. We pull together all of the interests who are concerned about big freight decisions and big freight projects. It's a volunteer group. It includes some carriers, includes some ports, even includes some coalitions. I just had a vision of the Freight Stakeholders Coalition, including this coalition, which has coalitions within it, sort of Matrushka doll of transportation, which shows that there is real depth in this issue. We share the concern that we will not see solid long-term economic recovery and growth if we don't support it with solid investment in transportation. We think for years our nation has had trade policies that weren't backed up by transportation policies. We're really trying to change that. And we want to do it on a multimodal basis. We really see the importance of the connections, of the nodes within the system. Things can move very quickly as they move across the country, and they can get lost in congestion if we don't have good connections. The basic things that the coalition has been supporting as we focus on these major projects are, first, there needs to be a national strategy and planning effort that says what do we want to achieve in the freight system. There needs to be a dedicated and firewall funding mechanism. A freight trust fund would be a good way to describe that. We have a paper here on that. We believe that any funding allocations out of that program for the purpose of major projects need to be merit-based and treated as investments, not as distributing money for pork. And we believe there has to be an effective partnership with the private sector to carry out the projects that are there. They serve the interests of railroads, of trucking companies, of shippers, of economic development activities. We have to bring those people to the table along with government. I think the time is right to do that. People are recognizing the need. Where do we now stand in terms of achieving this in a transportation bill? I also shouldn't let the opportunity go by to say mass transit is also part of that bill. And if we can improve mass transit, it'll leave some more room on the roadways for moving commerce. I think we draw some real positive feeling out of the stimulus bill, the American Recovery Act. A rather small portion of that was $1.5 billion of discretionary money for DOT to invest in significant projects. The applications for those projects are due very shortly. I believe DOT is going to publish the list. I wouldn't be surprised if they had 50 to 1 or 100 to 1 oversubscription of the money that's there. And we know, I certainly know from ones that I've been working on, there'll be a significant number of freight-related projects as part of that program, and it will help crystallize the demand. We know that the House bill that Chairman Oberstar has been working includes significant freight provisions. We look forward to working with him. We haven't seen much specific out of the Senate. The good news is there are actually two committees who care about this. Maybe we can put them in a degree of rivalry. The Environment and Public Works Committee has the basic jurisdiction. The Senate Commerce Committee is, by the way, commerce is our last name, and we want to be part of that activity to see that a multimodal approach to freight movement is included. I testified before EPW a few months ago. Senator Boxer made a very strong commitment to freight being part of this bill, and Senator Inhofe said, and I agree with you on that. When those two actually agree on something, it's going to be the foundation for moving ahead. I was at a conference last week, several of you were also there at the University of Virginia, sort of thinking about where the various commissions and studies have taken us and what we have ahead as we move into the overtime period. I hope it's a sudden death overtime that's called to a halt very quickly, but as we think about that, what do we need to be focusing on? Freight was one of the 4 pillars of that conference. We know it has to be there. We know as well, and we're having serious debate about how to pay for this. The ideas are on the table. The freight community will benefit substantially if the system is improved and are showing willingness to pay if we can make a program that works, if we can make a set of activities that work. The time is right to do that. I share Janet's view. The time is now to do that. We really need to do that. We really need to do it in a way that keeps freight on the table. It's important to the nation's economy that we do that.